All right, guys, newest Detroit Lion, Terrion Arnold. Literally my favorite fit for the Lions in this draft in the first round. I talked about it all winter. I did not think this was possible. We actually mentioned it earlier this week on the podcast. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I've written about it all winter, and I've talked about this in just about every radio or whatever interview media thing I've done all offseason. If one of those two top corners, Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell, fell into the 20s, to me, it was going to be worth it for Detroit to go up. And people were worried about them trading out. You got to go up and get one of these corners, especially if they fall. We saw all those quarterbacks go early. When Quinyon Mitchell and Arnold go down, it's a matter of preference at that point. My preference was Arnold. Others preferred Quinyon. I think those two are both very good football players, starting caliber corners. But for me, the fit here overall in general, the complete package that you're getting with Terrion Arnold is impossible to argue with, especially in the 20s. The culture fit and everything else. The one knock on him, and we're going to run through some clips from last year's LSU game. The one knock on him was top end speed. He was a 4.5 guy at the combine, but he also ran a 1.52 10 split, which is awesome. And here you can see him covering some ground here. And the thing he does that makes up for a lot of that is he's always around the ball with his eyes. He's technically sound. He's never out of position. The thing about these Nick Saban defensive backs, that's why so many people, including Brad Holmes with Brian Branch, love these guys. They're so disciplined and fundamentally sound, and they go to Alabama because they want to be technicians. They want to be coached hard. They want to be told when they're doing something wrong and not really given the excuse of, well, it worked, whatever. And here you can see this coming up and making a hit. This is the culture fit we're talking about. Like, a lot of guys can play corner, a lot of guys can cover. Not everybody wants to come up and hit, and not everyone wants to do it a lot. And this is required football if you're going to play in Detroit. They were one of the best teams against the run last year, as we know. This will only help that. They were in need of so much in the defensive backfield, and to me, it was not going to be worth it to wait beyond one of these two guys. These were the two, Mitchell and Arnold. Everything after that, to me, had a question mark. Even Nate Wiggins, who had the crazy speed. Everybody after that, Cooper DeJean, there were questions about, I thought, how they're going to hold up at corner. There are no questions with Terrion Arnold. This is a stud. Look at playing with his eyes up, going to get the football. Got better every day he was at Alabama. Ended up outpacing Kool-Aid McKinstry, who a couple years ago people thought was going to be a much higher pick than this guy. Works his butt off. This is just one of these dudes who was tested constantly and made plays over and over and over again. People tried to avoid Kool-Aid because they thought he had a rep. They went at Terrion, and he made him pay for it. They stopped going at him, and he still found a way to make plays. Culture-wise, the ability to be coached hard, the ability to take something, deposit it, and move on from it and just keep going. To me, this is right up there with the Brian Branch pick in terms of fit, value, everything. I love this pick for the Lions completely and totally. If you'd have told me a week ago they're going to come out of this with Terrion Arnold, I'd have said A+. I would have said no. I wouldn't even have blinked, and I would have said A+. This is an absolute fit all the way. And, for me, it's another example of Brad Holmes and the Lions scouting staff just being very, very good and understanding what they want and what they want to do. Holmes talked about this at the combine, right? A lot of people had given him flack, and I think rightly so, that they were a little maybe too patient at corner, and it cost them last year. But I think this shows they know how to evaluate. Holmes especially. He did a lot of stuff with the Rams. I believe he was a cross-checker there for a couple years. I believe he was even a combine scout for a while there, and did a lot of work with the corners. If you're going to be picky about a corner, I totally understand that. There was a couple years ago I thought they might have moved up for Stingley or Sauce Gardner, and they ended up going to get Jameson. That was the one time I looked back and said, maybe you should have done that. Everything after that, when they would pass on these corners, I'd be like, you know what? I don't hate it for the guys that they got because they're better players. This is a legit dude. This is the type of player you want. He's going to come in and be ready to play football and contribute right away. You can do a lot of stuff with him. He's never going to complain. I mean, perfect fit. Absolute perfect fit. Everybody saw him on the stage last night in Detroit. Can't wait to see him with the Lions. Can't say enough about it. A+ grade.